The Galactic Academy for Xenobiology Studies had a reputation for being the most prestigious institution in 12 sectors. It also had a reputation for its practical exams being absolutely terrifying. Dr. Iris Holt had been warned about this, multiple times, by multiple people. She'd nodded politely and continued grading papers, which was her default response to most warnings about things that seemed overblown. Today's exam was being administered by Professor Thalkor, an insectoid being whose species had 14 eyes and apparently used all of them to judge students simultaneously. He stood at the front of Lecture Hall 9, mandibles clicking with academic authority. "Today's practical examination," Thalkor announced, "will assess your ability to handle juvenile apex predators without triggering attack responses." Iris looked up from her grading. "I'm sorry, what?" "Standard curriculum, Dr. Holt. As a visiting professor, you are required to participate in all practical assessments. Nobody mentioned predators in my contract. It was in the appendix. The appendix was 300 pages long and written in 6 languages. Standard protocol." Iris went back to her papers. She had 30 essays about comparative respiratory systems and a strong desire to be literally anywhere else. 12 students stood in formation. 11 aliens of various species, all looking appropriately nervous. 1 human, Iris, looking like she was really regretting accepting this visiting position. "Release the subjects," Thalkor commanded. A containment field at the back of the hall deactivated. 6 Vraken cubs entered. They were, objectively speaking, adorable. Size of large wolves, covered in dark scales and defensive spikes that hadn't fully hardened yet. Big eyes that looked around the hall with curiosity and slight confusion. They were also, objectively speaking, apex predators whose adult forms could casually kill most species in the room. The alien students reacted appropriately, which is to say, panic. 1 Thalaxian student climbed onto a desk. A Kryn activated personal shields. A Vexian made a sound like a kettle boiling and tried to hide behind a chair. The cubs, already confused by the unfamiliar environment, got more agitated. Their defensive spikes raised. They started making distressed chirping sounds. Iris circled a grammatical error on an essay about gas exchange in aquatic species and made a note. "See me about comma usage." The cubs noticed something. 12 beings in the room, 11 radiating fear, 1 radiating nothing. Just calm, just focused on something that wasn't them. All 6 cubs looked at Iris. Then they made a collective decision. They charged. Thalkor's mandibles spread in alarm. "Take evasive action." Iris looked up. 6 cubs reached her desk, climbing over each other in their hurry. They scrambled into her lap, onto her shoulders, arranged themselves around her like she was a very comfortable piece of furniture. "Oh," Iris said. "Hey, puppies." 1 cub chirped and nuzzled her hand. "Okay, you're very sweet, but I'm trying to work here." The cubs settled, found optimal positions. Within 30 seconds, all 6 were asleep. The lecture hall went absolutely silent. Professor Thalkor's translator made a sound like a computer encountering a fatal error. "That is not the expected outcome." "Did I pass?" Iris asked, trying to reach around a cub to get to the next essay. Thalkor was pacing. Well, his species didn't exactly pace, but he was moving in agitated circles. "This is unprecedented. Completely unprecedented." Iris was petting one of the cubs absently. It was purring. She wasn't sure Vraken cubs were supposed to purr, but this one definitely was. "Did I pass?" she asked again. "The exam is designed to test survival response." "Yeah, and they're asleep. Pretty sure that means no one's in danger." "The cubs are supposed to attack." "Why would you test students with things designed to attack them?" "To assess threat recognition." Iris looked at the cubs. They looked back with big, sleepy eyes. 1 yawned, showing impressive teeth. "These are babies. They're not threatening. They are apex predators. They're 3 months old." The other students were still on their desks, still watching in what could only be described as horrified fascination. A Vexian student raised a tentacle. "How is she not dead?" "Because they're napping, not attacking," Iris said reasonably. 1 cub woke up slightly, saw Iris was still calm, made a contented sound, and went back to sleep. Another one repositioned itself to be more comfortable. A third started making a sound that was definitely purring. Vraken cubs do not purr, Thalkor said weakly. This one does. They are not domesticated. I'm not domesticating them. They're just sleeping. Thalkor's translator sparked. He tapped it frantically. Emergency faculty meeting, now. Can I go? They're using me as a heating pad and I really need to finish this grading. You will remain exactly where you are. That's not really fair. Do not move. Iris sighed and marked another essay. The cubs slept on. The academy dean arrived 16 minutes later with a security detail. Dean Vexthon was a krill, which meant he was approximately 8 feet of chitinous authority and bureaucratic fury. He entered the lecture hall, took one look at the situation, and stopped walking. Explain, he said to Thalkor. The cubs, they just... Use words, Professor. The cubs are sleeping on the human. Vexthon's compound eyes focused on Iris. Dr. Holt. Dean. Why are 6 apex predator cubs sleeping on you? I have no idea. They climbed up and decided I was comfortable. And you allowed this? Was I supposed to shove them off? They're babies. They are dangerous babies. They're asleep. How dangerous can sleeping babies be? One of the cubs shifted, Spike pressing against Iris's arm. She adjusted slightly to avoid getting poked. See? Not dangerous. Just uncomfortable furniture. Vexthon conferred with his security chief. Then with Thalkor. Then with what appeared to be a xenobiologist who'd been summoned from somewhere. The xenobiologist, a Thalaxian whose species was basically a floating collection of crystals, drifted closer. Fascinating, it said. This violates 17 established principles of predator-prey dynamics. I'm not prey, Iris said. I'm a professor. You are physically prey-sized. So are half the students here, but nobody's calling them prey. But you are human, unfamiliar species. The cubs should be terrified of you or territorial toward you. They seem pretty comfortable, actually. One cub snored. It was adorable. What did you do? The xenobiologist demanded. I sat here, graded papers. They climbed up. I didn't stop them. Why didn't you panic? Because they're babies. Why would I panic about babies? The xenobiologist started taking notes at a furious pace. Other faculty members were arriving now, crowding into the lecture hall. The cubs remained asleep. Occasionally one would wake up, check that Iris was still there, and drift back off. This is scientifically impossible, someone announced. And yet, Iris gestured at the cubs. Here we are. One cub woke up more fully, looked around, spotted a data pad that had been left on a nearby desk, climbed down, grabbed it in its mouth, brought it back to Iris. Thank you, sweetie, Iris said automatically, taking the pad. Good baby. The cub chirped happily and curled back up. You're reinforcing the behavior, the xenobiologist shrieked. What behavior? Being polite? Pack bonding behavior. They brought me something. I said thank you. That's just basic manners. Dean Vexthon pulled the security chief aside. They conferred quietly. The security chief pulled up something on a data pad. His expression, difficult to read on a Vexian face, shifted to what might have been alarm. Dean, the security chief said, we have a problem. Another one? This isn't the first time. Vexthon turned slowly. Explain. The security chief projected a hologram. Incident reports. 19 of them. Every time a human has attended practical exams involving juveniles, the security chief said, this has happened. The juveniles gravitate toward them, seek contact, refuse to leave. Silence. 19 times? Iris asked. We classified it as statistical anomaly. 19 times is not an anomaly. That's a pattern. We were hoping it would stop happening. Did you consider maybe telling humans about this beforehand? We wanted authentic responses. Iris looked at the cubs sleeping on her. looked at the faculty members panicking around her, looked at the other students still standing on desks like the floor was lava. "So what you're saying," she said slowly, "is that the Academy has been conducting experiments on humans without informed consent. And those experiments have been consistently showing that human-juvenile interactions break all your biological models, and instead of studying this scientifically, you've been covering it up?" "We prefer the term delayed investigation," Vexthon said. "That's just a fancy way of saying cover-up. Dr. Holt, I want hazard pay for this. You're not in danger. I've got 6 apex predators using me as a bed. That's definitely hazard pay territory." One of the cubs yawned, showing impressive teeth. Then it licked Iris's hand and went back to sleep. Dean Vexthon pulled out a communication device. "Get me the Galactic Council, now." "Is that really necessary?" Thalcor asked. "We have a situation," Vexthon said grimly. "A terrifying, adorable situation that apparently we've been having for months without realizing it." He looked at Iris, surrounded by contentedly sleeping predators. "And I suspect it's about to get much, much worse." The security chief looked like he hadn't slept in 3 days, which, given that his species only needed sleep once a week, was actually impressive. 19 incidents, he said, projecting holographic footage across the lecture hall. 19 separate occasions, 19 humans, all with the same result. The footage played. Different exams, different lecture halls, different humans, but always the same pattern. Juvenile predators released. Alien students panicking. Human remaining calm. Juveniles gravitating toward the human and refusing to leave. 19 flukes? Iris asked from under her pile of sleeping cubs. "We classified them as statistical anomalies," the security chief said defensively. "Did you consider maybe telling humans about the exams beforehand?" "We wanted authentic responses." "You got them, repeatedly. The same one. For months." Dean Vexthon was reviewing the data with increasing agitation. "How did we miss this pattern?" "We thought it would stop happening," the security chief admitted. Iris shifted slightly, trying to get more comfortable. The cubs adjusted without waking. "So your scientific method was, hope it goes away?" It was a working theory. It was denial. Scientists had set up equipment around Iris, analyzing her from what they clearly considered a safe distance. One held what looked like a biochemical scanner. "Are you wearing pheromones?" the scientist asked. "I'm wearing yesterday's shirt because I didn't expect to be stuck under apex predators today." "Any chemical enhancements? Hormonal treatments?" "Just deodorant. Sometimes." The scanner beeped. The scientist studied the readout with visible confusion. No unusual chemical signatures, no biological modifications, standard human biochemistry. "Told you." "But that makes no sense. There must be something." "Maybe there isn't. Maybe this is just what happens when humans meet baby animals." Around the room, academics were frantically writing papers. Iris could hear the titles being dictated. Predator-prey dynamics, the human exception. Cross-species bonding, implications for established theory. Why everything we know is wrong, a study in humiliation. That last one might have been sarcastic. Hard to tell with aliens. Then someone pulled up Earth's ecological history. A Thalaxian researcher made a sound like crystals shattering. "Oh no." "What?" Dean Vexthon demanded. "Earth's domestication records. Look at this." Holographic displays lit up. Wolves, cats, horses. Humans have a 30,000-year track record of making apex predators into pets. The room went silent. "They domesticated wolves," someone whispered. "Apex pack hunters. Made them into companions. Wildcats, solo ambush predators. Turned them into house pets. Horses, prey animals that could kill them with one kick. Made them into transportation." The list kept going. Cattle, pigs, chickens, ferrets, even foxes apparently in progress. "Humans systematically befriend their ecosystem's predators," a xenobiologist said weakly. "We also befriend prey animals," Iris pointed out. "We're equal opportunity friends." "This explains nothing." We like animals. Animals tend to like us back. It's not complicated. You share your living spaces with creatures that could kill you? Iris thought about her neighbor's German shepherd. I mean, so could my stairs, but I still use those. The cubs were snoring now. One was drooling on her sleeve, significantly. Iris tried to reach her water bottle without disturbing them. Failed. The cubs immediately resettled, pressing closer like they were afraid she might escape. This is my life now, she muttered. This is everyone's life now, Dean Vexthon said. If this pattern holds… An alarm interrupted him. Not the emergency kind, the diplomatic kind, which was somehow worse. We have visitors, the security chief announced. Vrakan Empire delegation. They're demanding the return of their young. Oh good, Iris said. Someone can take these guys and I can finish my grading. The security chief looked at the cubs. I don't think it's going to be that simple. The Vrakan delegation entered like they were breaching an enemy stronghold. 3 sets of parents. Each pair massive, scaled, and radiating the kind of authority that came from being apex predators who'd earned the title. They wore ceremonial armor marked with clan insignia. They stopped at the sight before them. 6 cubs, 1 human, all very comfortable. We have come for our young, the lead matriarch announced. Warlord Vraka, according to her insignia. Release them immediately. I'm not holding them, Iris said. They're just here. Feel free to collect them. The cubs woke up, saw their parents, made happy chirping sounds, but didn't move. Come, Vraka commanded. We return home now. The cubs looked at her, looked at Iris, settled closer to Iris. Did they just… One of the fathers started. They rejected the call. Another finished. Vraka's scales darkened with agitation. This is not acceptable. Release our young. Again, Iris said patiently. I'm not holding them. They're choosing to be here. One parent strode forward, reaching for the nearest cub. The cub growled. Actually growled. At its own parent. The parent froze. Did he just… He's protecting the human, Vraka said slowly. From us. Another parent tried. Same result. The cub complained and called to its siblings. All 6 cubs woke fully, formed a protective circle around Iris. Okay, Iris said. This is new. The parents backed off, clearly baffled. Vrakan cubs were supposed to be independent, territorial, aggressive. They weren't supposed to bond with strangers. They barely bonded with their own parents before adolescence. What have you done to them? Vraka demanded. I let them nap. You must have done something. Used some technique. Some human method. I graded papers. They climbed into my lap. I didn't stop them. That's literally it. Our young do not behave this way. Maybe they just needed a nap. Vraka studied Iris for a long moment. Studied the cubs, who were now settled protectively around the human, watching their own parents with suspicion. Our young do not bond with other species, Vraka said quietly. They barely bond with us. It is not in their nature. Yet they defend you like pack. She turned to Dean Vexthon. This human has claimed our cubs. By Vrakan law, she must now raise them. Iris choked. I'm sorry. What? When cubs choose a guardian, that guardian becomes responsible. It is law. I'm a visiting professor. I'm here for 2 months. The cubs will accompany you. I have a studio apartment. Then you will require a larger dwelling. I don't know how to raise Vrakan cubs. Vraka's expression might have been amusement. Hard to tell with Vrakan faces. Neither do we anymore. They ignore our teachings. They only respond to you. Iris looked at the cubs. The cubs looked back with big, trusting eyes. This is insane, she said. This is law, Vraka corrected. Dean Vexthon was making notes furiously. We'll need to arrange accommodations, dietary requirements, cultural education protocols. I teach xenobiology, Iris interrupted, not childcare. You now teach both. One of the cubs yawned, showing impressive teeth. Then it licked Iris's hand and resettled. I want hazard pay, Iris said, and a much bigger apartment, and someone to explain to Earth why I'm coming home with 6 apex predators. Granted, Vexthon said immediately. Because what else could he say? The galaxy's understanding of biology had just been demolished by predator cubs choosing nap time over their own parents. And Iris was stuck in the middle of it, covered in drool, and wondering how her life had gotten this weird, this fast. The emergency session was held in the dean's conference room, which had the capacity for 8 beings comfortably. There were currently 23 beings crammed inside. Iris sat in the middle with 6 cubs draped across her, lap, shoulders, and feet. The cubs had refused separation. The council observers had refused to miss this. The result was bureaucratic chaos with adorable accessories. Vrakan law is clear, Matriarch Vraka stated. Cubs bond to their guardian. Once bonded, that guardian is responsible for their upbringing. I'm a visiting professor, Iris said, for what felt like the 100th time. I teach for 2 months, then go back to Earth. The cubs must accompany you. I have a studio apartment. Then you require larger accommodations. Iris looked down at the cubs. They looked up at her with big, innocent eyes. One made a sound like a question. This is emotional manipulation, she told them. They purred. I don't know how to raise Vrakan cubs. Neither do we anymore, Vraka admitted. They ignore our teachings. They only respond to you. One of the fathers stepped forward. Traditional Vrakan upbringing requires combat training from age 3 months. Hunting practice. Dominance establishment. They must learn to fight, to intimidate, to take what they need. So you're saying I need to train them to fight, hunt, and establish dominance? Yes. And if I don't? They will be weak, shamed, possibly exiled from Vrakan society. Iris looked at the cubs again. They were playing with each other now, gentle mock fighting that involved more rolling around than actual aggression. They were literally the least threatening things she'd ever seen. What if they don't want to do all that? She asked quietly. The Vrakan parents exchanged glances. Want? Vraka repeated. It is not about want. It is about survival. About honor. But if they're happy being this? Iris gestured at the cubs, who were now trying to see how many of them could fit in her lap at once. Does it matter? It matters to Vrakan culture. Maybe Vrakan culture needs updating. The silence that followed was profound. Then Dean Vexton cleared his throat. If I may interject. We've been reviewing additional data while you discussed custody arrangements. He activated a holographic display. Statistics. Lots of statistics. Human teachers at this academy, he began, have a 43% higher cooperation rate from students compared to non-human faculty. Human counselors report 67% better outcomes in conflict resolution. Human administrators have completed projects that were classified as impossible for decades. What's your point? Iris asked. The point is, whatever you do, it doesn't just work on cubs, it works on everyone. More data flooded the displays. Every human staff member at the academy showing similar patterns, high cooperation, easy rapport building. Students from traditionally hostile species becoming friends in human-taught classes. It's a species-wide trait, a researcher announced. Every human we've studied exhibits enhanced social bonding capabilities. Weaponized socialization, a military observer muttered. Or we're just friendly? Iris suggested. Too friendly. Suspiciously friendly. Is there a maximum allowable friendliness in the galaxy that I wasn't informed about? A council observer, crystalline, official, deeply uncomfortable, spoke up. The council needs to understand. Is this a security risk? Are humans infiltrating our institutions through social engineering? We're being nice to people. That's not infiltration. It is if it changes behavior patterns across entire populations. Meanwhile, the cubs had gotten bored with the meeting and were now playing with Iris's hair. One had found her stylus and was trying to figure out what it did. No, honey, Iris said, taking it back. That's not a toy. The cub accepted this without complaint and went to play with its siblings instead. The Vrakan parents watched this with visible amazement. They never obey us that easily, one father said. Did you try asking nicely? Iris asked. Asking? We command. Maybe that's the problem. Vraka's scales rippled. You suggest we've been raising our young incorrectly? I'm suggesting that different approaches work for different individuals. These cubs respond to kindness. Maybe that's okay? The room erupted in debate. Cultural contamination versus educational reform. Security threats versus diplomatic opportunities. Whether humans were dangerous or beneficial. Iris tuned it out and focused on keeping the cubs from eating anyone's datapads. Earth's diplomatic corps arrived 2 hours into the meeting. Ambassador Halifax entered expecting accusations, prepared defenses, and possibly a galactic incident. What he got was, "Why are your species so good with children, and can you please send more?" He stopped walking. "I'm sorry, what?" Dean Vexthon pulled up the data again. Students taught by human instructors showed decreased xenophobia, increased cross-species cooperation, and better conflict resolution skills. We would like to request additional human staff for educational positions. We're not here to be accused of something? Oh, we're definitely accusing you of something, a council observer said. We're just not sure if it's a crime or a public service. Multiple species representatives approached with requests. Teachers, counselors, childcare workers. The demand was overwhelming. You've accidentally created a peace education program, Halifax said slowly, processing this. By just being yourselves? I just let them sleep, Iris said from under her pile of cubs. And somehow that's revolutionary. Species were lining up with applications. Some worried about cultural contamination. Others embracing the opportunity. Economic analysts were already calculating the value of human social skills as a tradable commodity. This is infiltration, the military observer insisted. Just benign infiltration. It's not infiltration if we're openly being hired, Halifax protested. Iris raised her hand. Can someone please tell me if I have to raise these cubs? You have no choice, Vraka said. They have bonded. To break that bond would damage them psychologically. We can arrange support, Halifax offered. Funding, resources, cultural advisors. I teach xenobiology. I'm not a daycare. The cubs made sad sounds at her raised voice. Iris looked at them. They looked back with expressions that could melt titanium. She sighed. Fine. But I want hazard pay, and a much bigger apartment, and someone to explain to my department head why I'm bringing 6 apex predators to Earth. Granted, Vexthon and Halifax said simultaneously. Because really, what choice did they have? The galaxy had just discovered that humans could accidentally revolutionize education and childcare by being themselves. And Iris was stuck being the living proof, covered in cubs and wondering when her life had become this absurd. 3 months passed faster than anyone expected. Iris's new apartment was significantly larger. The cubs had their own room, though they mostly slept in a pile around her bed. She'd learned Vrakan dietary requirements, protein-heavy, varied, behavioral expectations, previously rigid, now flexible, and how to say, please stop eating the furniture, in 3 languages. The cubs had learned sharing, patience, and that humans made weird sounds when tickled. She was now running the cross-species educational integration program. Official title, impressive letterhead, workload that made her previous position look like vacation. The cubs were her teaching assistants. It had started as a joke. One of them had wandered into her classroom during a lecture, and students had panicked. Iris had calmly continued teaching while the cub settled at her feet. By the end of class, students were asking if they could pet it. Now all 6 cubs attended her classes. They demonstrated behavior patterns, helped carry equipment, and occasionally provided moral support to anxious students by being aggressively friendly. Success rate, unprecedented. Students who'd never spoken to other species were forming study groups. Traditional enemies were sharing notes. The cafeteria had gone from segregated tables to mixed seating. What's your secret? A colleague asked one day. I don't have one, Iris said honestly. I just treat everyone like people. Revolutionary, the colleague muttered. Other human teachers were having similar success. Not matching Iris's numbers, the cubs gave her an advantage, but still dramatically improving on previous metrics. The data was undeniable. Humans made things better just by being present and caring. Species that had been skeptical were now requesting human staff. Those that had embraced it early were seeing measurable improvements in social cohesion. Then the statistics came in from a broader analysis. Regions with human teachers, 60% reduction in interspecies conflicts among students. Facilities with human counselors, 70% improvement in conflict resolution outcomes. Stations with human administrative staff, projects completed on time, under budget, with high satisfaction rates. Earth had accidentally become the galaxy's therapist, Halifax reported back to Earth. And everyone wants appointments. Iris read the report while one cub napped on her feet, and another brought her a stylus she'd lost under the desk. "Good baby," she said automatically. The cub purred. She looked at the 6 cubs, now juvenile-sized but still treating her like their favorite person, and shook her head. She'd come to the academy for a 2-month teaching position. She'd left with custody of 6 apex predators and apparently the responsibility of transforming galactic education. "This is the weirdest career path I've ever had," she told the cubs. They chirped in agreement. And somewhere, on 60 different worlds, species were requesting human teachers for their young. Because humans didn't conquer through strength. They conquered through friendship. And there was no defense against that. 6 months in, and Iris had accepted her fate. The cubs, now juveniles, each roughly the size of a full-grown Great Dane, were official teaching assistants. They had badges and everything. The academy had insisted on the badges. Iris suspected it was so people would stop panicking when they saw apex predators in the hallways. "All right, everyone," Iris addressed her lecture hall. "Today we're covering predator behavioral patterns. My assistants will be demonstrating." The cubs moved through the room with practiced ease. One carefully carried equipment to student desks. Another projected holographic displays. A third helped a nervous Thalaxian student adjust their workspace to accommodate their crystalline structure. The students represented 12 species. They sat together, not segregated by type, not clustered in defensive groups. Just together. "Dr. Holt," a Vexian student raised a tentacle. "How do you achieve such high cooperation rates?" "I don't do anything special. You're all students. You all need to learn the material. What species you are doesn't change that. But surely, no species hierarchy, no favoritism, just, you're here to learn, I'm here to teach. Do the work, be respectful, help each other. That's it." A cub gently nudged a student who was falling asleep. The student jerked awake, saw the massive predator looming over them, and relaxed. Because they knew the cub wasn't a threat. Just a teaching assistant doing its job. "Revolutionary," the student muttered. Other professors had started copying Iris's methods. Results were improving across the board. But nobody matched her success rate. "What's your secret?" a colleague asked during break. "I don't have one. I just talk to them like people." "Like people?" "Yeah. Students are students. Colleagues are colleagues. The cubs are cubs. Everyone gets treated with basic respect. It's not complicated." The colleague looked at her like she'd revealed the secrets of the universe. Maybe she had. Earth's diplomatic channels were overwhelmed. Requests for human teachers flooded in daily. Counselors, mediators, childcare workers. Thousands of humans were taking positions across council space, and the results were consistent everywhere. Cooperation increased. Conflict decreased. Social bonds formed across species lines that had been considered impossible. "It's not manipulation," Ambassador Halifax explained to yet another concerned council member. "Humans genuinely treat everyone as potential friends. That's just how we are." The cubs traveled with Iris now. Demonstration tours at other institutions. Everywhere they went, the same pattern emerged. Young of other predator species responded to humans the same way the Fracken cubs had. With trust, with affection. With that devastating combination of vulnerability and confidence that came from feeling safe. Academic papers proliferated. The human effect. Cross-species social integration. Friendship as diplomatic tool. The Earth model. Why being nice actually works. A revolutionary concept. Some species remained suspicious, convinced there had to be some hidden agenda, some manipulation. Most embraced it, because the data didn't lie. Regions with human staff showed measurable improvements in cooperation, reduced violence, increased innovation through collaboration. Earth had accidentally become the galaxy's therapist, and business was booming. A young Thalaxian student approached Iris after class one day. "Dr. Holt, why do humans befriend everyone?" The question echoed across the lecture hall. Other students stopped packing up to hear the answer. Iris thought about it. Really thought. "Because everyone's interesting," she said finally. "Every species has unique perspectives, experiences, ways of seeing the universe. And life's too short to spend it alone when there are so many fascinating people to meet." The student processed this. "That's it? That's it. But surely, we're curious, we're social, we like learning about others. And when you approach someone with curiosity instead of fear, they respond differently. They feel safe being themselves. And that's when real connection happens." The answer spread, became quoted in papers, repeated in diplomatic sessions, taught in xenosociology courses. Humans befriended everyone because they were interested in everyone. Revolutionary, simple, true. Final scene. Iris's lecture hall, late afternoon. Mixed species students working on group projects. Cubs moving between groups, offering help, keeping energy positive. A student asked why cubs responded so well to humans. "Because we don't see them as threats," Iris explained. "We see them as young beings trying to figure out the world. When you approach someone with curiosity instead of fear, they respond differently." "But they're predators," a Kryn student protested. "So are you. So am I, technically. Humans are pursuit predators. We're all predators here." Iris gestured around the room. "Difference is, we decided predators could be friends too." One of the cubs was helping a small Vexian student reach a high shelf. Carefully, gently, using its size as advantage rather than threat. "You taught them that?" another student asked. "No, they already knew it. They just needed permission to show it." Class ended. Students filed out in mixed species groups, chatting, laughing, helping each other pack up. Cubs playing together with younger students from 3 different predator species, showing that the pattern wasn't unique to Fracken. Iris watched from her desk. This was why she did it. Not for the accolades or the papers or the galactic recognition. For moments like this, watching former enemies become friends because someone had shown them it was possible. "This is why we do it," she said quietly. One of the cubs chirped in agreement, settling at her feet. The galaxy had spent millennia building walls between species. Humans had spent months knocking them down by treating everyone like potential friends instead of potential threats. Was it revolutionary? Maybe. Was it complicated? Not really. Humans just refused to see enemies where they could see friends instead. And somehow, that changed everything.